Chapter 27. The regents of the International New Age University have conferred on Imogen Agnes Friel the degree of Doctor of Psychology, with special concentration in psychodynamic therapy and electromagnet homeopathy, with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. Bags in hand, Xochitl bounded down the porch stairs toward El Gallo, parked in his usual spot on the small patch of gravel off the driveway. The flaming orange tornado gleamed in the morning sun. Xochitl felt a surge of adrenaline pulse through her body at the prospect of revving his engines and tearing down the highway again. It had been too long for either of them, and they needed to stretch their legs. Rounding the back of her muscle car, Xochitl almost tripped over her own feet as she gazed upon the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen, a brand new cherry red Tesla Roadster parked next to El Gallo. She dropped the bags on the ground as if she were a piece of metal and the Roadster a giant magnet. Xochitl was uncontrollably drawn to the supercharged electric car. She ogled the exquisite convertible, running her hand down the two-seater's sleek body and over its velvety black leather interior, which strangely had a child safety seat strapped to it. Who in Empyrean owns $100,000 Tesla? And why would the Pendejo have a car seat inside? Xochitl took one last longing look inside before tossing her bags in El Gallo's trunk. Don't worry, baby, she patted her own sweet ride. Mom'll never leave you. Hi! A high-pitched voice shrilled from behind Xochitl. Hi, Joel. Xochitl spun around. A 40-something woman with dark, thick-rimmed glasses and streaked hair, concealed under a floppy hat, wiggled her fingers in a prissy wave. Cross between schoolmarm and flower child, she looked like a confused mess. Please God, don't let her be the Tesla's owner. Kennels are in the back. Xochitl pointed toward the rear of the ranch house. You must be Xochitl, the woman cooed and offered Xochitl a limp hand. Am I supposed to shake it or kiss it? She did neither. Do I know you? Of course. The woman's hand lingered in the air for another moment before dropping to her side. It's me, Imogen. Stunned by the realization that Lucy's psychopsychiatrist had somehow found them, Xochitl threw her hands up in disgust. Hi, Joel. I don't have time for this. She stepped around Imogen and headed back to the house. Kai, vámonos, she yelled over her shoulder as she took the stairs two at a time. Quite an interesting Aztec name. Imogen matched her stride to Xochitl. Aha! Xochitl flung open the screen door and entered the ranch foyer. The scent of freshly baked cookies filled the living room. Jerry, she called out. We gotta leave. Will you pack us up some food? She grabbed Lefty's military jacket off the coat rack. Sure thing, Zoc, Jerry replied from the kitchen. I'll throw in some chocolate chip and lemon bars. I myself went the traditional route, Imogen continued, oblivious to the exchange, picking a name more befitting a person of Hispanic heritage. So, this is Lucy's home. Xochitl reared on the crazy woman invading Lucy's haven. Out! Xochitl shooed Imogen, who nearly tripped over her sandals, outside and down the stairs, backing her up until they'd reached the side of the house. Kai now. Just then a pretty little girl with raven ringlets, dressed like a doll, ran around the corner of the house, Kai, Tao and Thandy following behind. Kai threw his red ball high in the air as the life-size doll leapt up 5 feet off the ground and caught it square in her mouth. Hands! Imogen cried. Lupe, not with your mouth. Lupe spit the ball out and ran to Imogen's side. Mommy! Mommy! Lupe howled, her voice, though high in pitch like Imogen's, was more pleasing to the ear. Did you see how high I jumped? Yes. Imogen doted, taking Lupe by the hand. What a special little girl. Hi, Joel. Xochitl rolled her eyes. Kai's been playing with me, Mommy. Lupe squirmed out of her mother's grip and raced over to Kai, who patted the child on her head. Tao and Thandy circled the two were kids, and a chase game was on. Kai dashed toward the kennels with Lupe close on his heels as the Ridgeback puppies loped alongside. No running, Lupe. Imogen called after her daughter. I really must see Lucy. Well, she's busy right now. Xochitl threw Lefty's jacket on. I know. Why? Don't you email her whatever it is you need to ask and she'll get back to you. I got the impression Lucy wasn't much for emailing, Imogen said, not realizing Xochitl was mocking her. Exactly. Xochitl cupped her hands to her mouth. Kai, we have to go. Kai instantly came to a halt and headed back to Xochitl and Imogen. Lupe stayed right where she was with her head drooped and her arms crossed. Lupe Rosita Agnes Friel. Imogen yelled. You come here this instant. Lupe stood her ground and stomped her feet. How adorable. Excuse me a moment. Imogen put up an apologetic hand. Take all the time you want. Xochitl waved Imogen on and was about to turn back toward El Gallo when she saw Lupe's head fly up, her nose sniffing the air. She stood still for a moment, then darted up the hill where Lucy was, saying goodbye to her mother. Bubula, stop. Imogen yelled. Crap. Xochitl pointed to Kai. Stay here. Get ready to leave. Then she sprinted after Imogen. Tao and Thandy howled as they ran past Xochitl. Bewildered, Lucy watched Imogen Friel hike clumsily up Skylark Hill. The bedeviled woman looked like a refugee from the Renaissance fair, costumed as. She was in a billowy blouse, a patchwork skirt, leather sandals and a ridiculous hat. This was a far cry from the professional pantsuits she had worn at Folsom Prison. Imogen had also grown her chin-length bob out into a mess of long hippie hair streaked with shades of cotton candy pink, fuchsia, and cerise. A little girl with perfect sable ringlets, outfitted in a velvet dress, complete with matching blue cloak and shiny black patent leather Mary Janes, ran in circles around the out-of-breath Imogen. The girl pointed at Lucy and yelled, Cece, I found her, mommy. I found her. I'm a good girl. Imogen smiled indulgently at the child and cooed, who is just the best little girl in the world. The child preened. I bet it's me. Yes, my little Lupe. You are the best little girl in the world. Imogen sounded serious. Lucy protectively stood in front of her mother's stone heart. What are you doing here, Imogen? She felt antagonistic toward the shrink for intruding. Oh, you know, the mountain comes to Muhammad and all that. Imogen paused to take in the panoramic view of the Empyrean Valley. This place is fantastic. Taking up permanent residence will look very good on your report, Lucy. Nothing is permanent. Lucy started but thought better than to give Imogen a hook. I can't leave California, so here I am. For now. Oh, but this is beautiful, Imogen said and took a long look around. Fresh air, biodynamic farming. Which reminds me, the solstice is coming. Paradise. Well, Empyrean was the highest heaven to the ancient Greeks after all. You deserve this, Lucy. And it's so wonderful you still get to work with the animals. Lucy looked at the woman, then at the child. Is this the Lupe? Imogen jumped in. Lupe, this is your Aunt Lucy. She was there the day you were born. A wave of nausea coursed through Lucy at the uninvited memory of Imogen standing over the ripped open body of a woman in a pink jumpsuit. Did you know my real mommy? Lupe asked shyly and batted her preternaturally long black eyelashes. Imogen looked hurt by the child's casual cruelty but recovered quickly and put a possessive hand on Lupe's shoulder. Not well. Lucy dismissed the little girl. Excuse me. She started back down the path. Xochitl arrived at the crest with Tao and Thandy behind her. Zoki wasn't out of breath, though she had clearly been running. The pups took a side trip, Xochitl explained her late arrival. Sorry, I couldn't stop that bitch. She gestured toward Imogen. And the little kid has a nose like a bloodhound. Can't even guess where she knows your scent from. Zoki looked at the little girl with annoyance. I see you've met the Werebaby, Lucy said. Baby my ass. Kid looks like she's 5. Xochitl stopped and took another measure of the child. Oh, thank you. Lupe is growing like a weed, Imogen squawked. It's the good, organic, gluten-free diet, I think. People poison themselves with preservatives and don't even know it. Have you tried chia seeds, Xochitl? Xochitl sharply turned her back on the woman and the child and caught up to Lucy. I had a call. Miguel's in trouble. We have to go, Xochitl said, dread in her voice. Tell me in the car, Lucy agreed without needing to hear more. She knew Miguel was Xochitl's Achilles heel. Lucy didn't want to return to LA, but she would walk through fire for her friend. And if Xochitl needed to help Miguel in LA, they'd go to LA to help Miguel. No matter what. A little yelp escaped Tao, who had stayed behind at the tree sniffing Lupe's hand. The pup and his sister started racing back down the path toward the house. Long ears flopping, the dogs hurried past Lucy and Xochitl. I didn't do anything. Lupe yelled preemptively. She was running after Tao and Thandie unnaturally fast and dodged to the side easily when Xochitl tried to grab her. Lupe let out a shrill titter and left a cloud of dust behind. What's with your kid? Xochitl asked Imogen, who had awkwardly jogged up behind them. The three women watched Lupe disappear behind a cluster of flowering dogwood trees, apparently trying to cut the puppies off before they reached the bottom of the hill. Oh, she's a special little girl. Again Imogen sounded proud. Lucy thought. Imogen did not have healthy parenting skills, but Lucy didn't care. That'll teach you to steal a baby during a prison riot. You just bought yourself a crapload of trouble. As far as Lucy was concerned, Imogen's hideous choice was punishment enough. Kid or not, if she hurts my dogs, I'll kick her ass, Xochitl said, surprising Lucy. Your dogs? Lucy asked, baffled. Yeah, you know, sometimes dogs just pick you, Lucy, whether you're ready or not. Xochitl shrugged. Xoki likes dogs now. Awesome. Let's run, Xochitl said, taking action to cover her concern like she always did. The car's already packed. Lucy and Xochitl kept a solid pace with one another, leaving Imogen to follow as well as she could. Lucy felt good. Running down the mountain path kicked her energy level into high gear and left her alert and excited to take on whatever challenge Miguel would present. Without warning, the little girl came sprinting back up the path alone, meeting them not far from the house. She'd fallen a few times, Lucy could tell by the skin knees. Lupe's air of precocious superiority was gone, and she looked terrified. The people took Kai, she wailed. Lucy dropped to one knee and put her hands on Lupe's shoulders. The child seemed traumatized and ready to shut down. Lupe. Lucy tried to stay very calm to help the child hang on. Lupe's violet eyes sparkled and odd sounds belched forth from the back of her throat. What happened to Kai? Xochitl blew up at the girl. Lupe shrank back, but words quickly spilled forth without her pausing for breath. A blonde lady in a chair and big men. They shot Kai with a loud boom. And they put him in a big black car. They shot him. Lucy panicked. Was there blood? No. The little girl pointed to her neck. There was a little thing with feathers. She started to cry and hiccup. Don't let the blonde lady get me. Someone tranked him? Xochitl looked over at Lucy. At that moment Imogen emerged from around the bend. Instantly crazed by the scene in front of her, she flung herself at Lucy's back. Leave my daughter alone. Don't touch her, you lunatic sociopath. Imogen grabbed fistfuls of Lucy's hair and yanked her head back. Ow! Lucy threw her shoulders back, trying to dislodge Imogen. Lupe let out a heartbreaking howl. Xochitl dragged Imogen off of Lucy and threw the screeching woman in the dirt. Imogen, I don't have time for you, Lucy said quietly and got to her feet. Take your kid and get out of here. Lucy looked at Lupe and pointed to Imogen. Lupe, listen to me. Imogen is your mommy. Your only mommy. Now go with your mommy. Lupe stopped crying and ran into Imogen's waiting arms. The woman had scrambled to her feet, blouse disheveled and hat askew. Dirt and tears streaked Imogen's face. She threw her arms around Lupe, and the two held each other tight. Lucy and Xochitl left mother and daughter to sort themselves out and returned to the ranch without further incident. They saw Jerry and Rana by El Gallo in an apparent argument. The house dogs circled them, making a nuisance of themselves. Jerry held a cooler she was trying to load into the back seat of the car. Rana barricaded the car door with her body. When the women spotted them, Rana waved and hurried toward Lucy. The chocolate labs trotted to meet Lucy too, but the pups Tao and Thandie ran straight to Xochitl. Jerry said you guys were heading back to LA, but Hannah isn't back yet. Can you wait? Rana asked, looking upset. Did you see Kai get taken? Lucy cut the conversation short. Rana looked befuddled. He was playing by the apple trees when I brought the boarding hounds in for breakfast. Look after Hannah and the ranch, Lucy said en route to the car, not even glancing at Rana. Don't just leave, Lucy. Rana swept her straw cowboy hat from her head and pugnaciously slapped it against her leg. She made no move to stop Lucy and Xochitl, nor did she follow to the car to say goodbye. Jerry, on the other hand, hugged Lucy before she could climb into El Gallo. Hey, just come back when you can, Jerry gently told them. She handed Xochitl a thermos. Coffee for the road, lady. You take care of our Lucy. Lucy felt tears shoot into her eyes as she saw Xochitl bend down to feed the little ridgebacks a couple treats. The dogs hurried into a perfect sit position. Their eyes were glued to Xochitl. Xochitl patted Tao's flank and placed a soft kiss on Thandy's head. "Don't worry, Peritos. I'll be back." Lucy hoped that would be the case, but her chest felt tight with apprehension. As she slid into the driver's seat and brought El Gallo to life, Xochitl pulled the passenger door closed a little harder than necessary and stared out the window. "It's a nice place. Miguel would like it here." She sighed. "Werebeast rescue and rehabilitation. I like the sound of that," Lucy replied, wistfully wondering if Miguel could still be helped. "Hey Zoc, make sure all 7 dogs stay with Jerry. No running down the driveway." Lucy didn't look back herself but gave a quick honk, which solicited barks and howls from the pack of house dogs and the boarded whirs in the kennel. So much for post-breakfast naps. There's just the one road. It starts here and leads straight back to town. Lucy looked at the dirt road ahead. Whoever took Kai had to go this way. "Hey Lucy," Xochitl said. "Imogen is following us in her badass sports car." "That's Imogen's ride?" Lucy glanced in the rearview mirror. "Yeah, I can't believe Loca drives that beautiful machine." Zoki put her hand on El Gallo's dash lovingly. "Don't worry, baby. I still love you. But I think you might need a girlfriend. Hope the tight suspension gives her hemorrhoids." Lucy stepped on the gas and forced El Gallo on a reckless descent toward town. Chapter 28. Castle. Huntsman. Operation Coal Miner is a go. I repeat, Coal Miner is a go. Huntsman. Copy Castle. And may I say you're still the fairest of them all. Castle. Ha. Ha. Now get to work. Huntsman. Roger that. Hi-ho. Hi-ho. Huntsman moving out. Castle. Huntsman, you have 5 hostiles moving in from the east. Huntsman. Copy. Sporadic gunfire, unintelligible screams, latrant animal noises at chaotic intervals. Huntsman. Anders on your left. What the castle we're coming under. Heavy attack. Fall back. Fall back. Castle. Huntsman, do you copy? Over. Do you copy? Commander Green, do you copy? Huntsman. Oh my God. Castle. Brian. Transmission ended. Transcript Special Operations Group Debrief. Agent Cassandra Green. Operation Coal Miner. Classified. 21 months ago. The air conditioning piped gusts of frigid air through the prison infirmary. Lucy could see the caged thermostat on the opposite wall holding at a steady 68 degrees. The straps on her bed gone, she once again had a full range of motion. Lucy sat up and swung her legs over the side of the bed. The pink scrubs she now wore were an improvement over the hospital gown she'd been wrapped in the last time she'd woken up. She looked around for shoes or at least slippers. Her head still buzzed, but the drugs and painkillers had worn off as her throbbing forearms could attest. Judging by the light streaming in the window, it was daytime, probably early afternoon. She was alone in the room, no other patients, no orderlies, no nurses, no doctors, no one. An ear-splitting scream cut through the silence. Lucy vaulted out of bed and threw open the infirmary door. Shouldn't that be locked? Shouts for help and the sounds of running feet rushed toward her. Before Lucy could duck back into the room, she spotted 2 women, one in patterned nurses' scrubs and one in a colorful pantsuit, running down the hall and screaming for help. A giant fur-covered wolf monster sprang from wall to wall, chasing them. For sport. Lucy barreled toward the beast, waving her arms to draw its attention away from the women. "Hey Fuzz, but over here." Covered in black fur head to toe, this beast was tall and lanky. It had scrawny arms and toothpick legs. Long teeth didn't fit properly into the giant lupin jaw, giving it an asymmetrical appearance. Deep-set amber eyes glimmered with bloodlust. The ripped remains of an orange jumpsuit marked it as one of the regular inmates. "Stop. Sit. Stay." Lucy had been prepared to fight to give the women a chance to get away, but to her immense relief the triple command stopped the werebeast in its tracks. It crouched down and eyed her like a cat eyes a goldfish. The creature yowled and gargled bizarre high-pitched noises in the back of its throat, but it didn't move from its spot on the floor. "You tamed it," the woman in the pantsuit said with awe. Instead of getting to safety, she stepped closer, her kitten heels click-clacking softly. She tucked her chin-length hair behind her ears, and adjusted her glasses primly. That's the same damn noise my cat used to make when it stalked birds through the window. The woman in the nurse's uniform came up behind Lucy and cautiously snuck a quick look at the beast. Lucy noticed the duckies on her scrubs matched the yellow beads woven through her shoulder-length cornrows. That is a predatory instinct common in house cats but also found in many of the Feliformia, mongoose, hyena, civet, but not the lupin so much. They quasi-ritualize the killing bite by making these sounds, tasting the blood already, so to speak. The woman in the bright teal pantsuit looked at the were through her thick glasses, studying the beast with rapt curiosity. Gross. The nurse's terror had turned to no-nonsense disgust. That's Dr. Friel. She waggled her thick fingers toward the pantsuit woman who had pulled a notepad from some pocket and scribbled furiously. I'm Myra, the nurse said. I saved your bacon that night you came in all cut up, and now you're gonna save mine. And hers. I don't. Lucy started to say. Lordy, did you ever make that puppy sit and stay? Myra stepped closer. Now, get my brown sugar out of here, boo. Have shoes, Lucy finished. Myra angled her lips into an unconcerned moo. The Werebeasts ululated in frustration. A harrowing profusion of urgent wolf howls resonated through the halls in response. Myra, quick, what's down that way? Lucy took a few steps toward the sound. The women's dorm. Myra's face had gone ashen. Open the infirmary door for me, Lucy called to Dr. Friel, snapping her out of her reverie. Lucy looked into the Werebeast's face and pointed toward the open door. Please let this work. On your bed. She snapped her fingers when it didn't move right away. On your bed. Lucy repeated firmly and advanced on the creature. The Werebeast sprang up, raced through the open door and jumped onto Lucy's hospital bed. Curling itself into a ball, it kept both eyes on Lucy. Dr. Friel, can you lock this? Lucy shut the infirmary door and watched the beast through the wire mesh of the security window. Call me Imogen. The woman offered her hand as if they were meeting at a cocktail party. Lucy just stared at her. I have a code for these new doors. I just can't remember. Imogen deliberated. 1-2-3-4, Myra threw in. She uses 1-2-3-4 for all her passwords. Myra rolled her eyes. The faraway screams grew more frantic, and Lucy couldn't wait any longer. Barefoot and unarmed, she ran toward the noise. Turning the corner, she thought the hall looked familiar. I went this way the day of my intake. I remember the women's dorm was to the left. This signed the way out. Myra huffed behind her. Ahead, Lucy saw a guard standing in front of the dorm door. He fumbled with a set of keys. Like most of Folsom's cells, the temporary women's dorm had an old-fashioned lock. Lucy stopped just out of his reach. There's something crazy in there. The guard sweated profusely. There are people in there, Officer Peckler. Imogen's scold turned plea. Peckler snorted. All murderers. Serves them right. Without a thought, Lucy hopped past Peckler and yanked open the door, smashing it into his face hard. As the man stumbled back, Lucy planted a firm kick into his stomach, ensuring his downward trajectory. Grab his keys. Lucy shouted to Myra and ducked into the room. The women's dorm was a medium-sized space packed with 10 freestanding double bunks. Normally cramped but orderly, the room looked like a tornado had touched down. Most of the bunks were upside down on the ground or pushed all the way to the far wall. Sheets, blankets, and clothing were strewn about. Helter-skelter. 3 Werebeasts hunkered on top of the overturned bunks, their backs turned to Lucy. They plagued a huddle of nearly 20 prisoners and a few guards. In an instant, Lucy made out the faces of her former dorm mates, all pressing against each other to protect pregnant Celia, the most vulnerable of them all. 2 female guards looked determined as they put their bodies between the creatures and the prisoners. A 4th beast writhed on the ground, clutching at its face. The stout guard Lucy remembered as Officer Rivers stood over her transformed colleague, looking almost smug. The beast ripped at its already shredded guard uniform and whimpered in pain. Lucy noticed a faint smell of onion and felt the telltale burn of discharged pepper spray in her eyes. The human guards had stopped the attack for the moment, but the Werebeasts were regrouping. The fluorescence flickered wildly above Lucy. Shit, power's going out. PSSST. She felt like a fool baiting the predators. Get the women out, Lucy called to the guards. I'll keep our furry friends busy. The three beasts were all very large and flabby rather than muscular. The pink, big girl prison uniforms hung in tatters off each gray-furred body. Down. Lucy pointed to the floor, hoping they would just do her the favor. No movement. She stepped closer, unwavering but darting her eyes from one to the next. Stay. Lucy cleared the path with her naked feet, almost tripping over the contents of an overturned plastic bin. A black and red pillow and abstract sort of ladybug caught her eye. The Werebeasts watched her with great interest, fortunately ignoring the group of women slowly creeping along the wall toward the door. Lucy slowly inched closer to the pack of three, hands spread wide. While they still hadn't moved against her, they did not look ready to comply. Her only chance was redirection. In a flash, she scooped up the contraband ladybug pillow, pitched it to the far side of the room and yelled out brightly, "Go get it!" On her call, several things happened all at the same time. The three gray Werebeasts dashed for the makeshift toy, pushing at each other and snarling. The group of women made a break for the door, and the formerly pepper-sprayed Wereguard leaped up and sank its huge claws and teeth into the slowest of the inmates. The wounded girl shrieked in pain and went down on her knees. "Off!" Lucy commanded the beast. It reeled back, leaving its prey draped across a tipped-over bunk. Lucy saw the back of the woman's neck torn out and huge gashes in her shoulders. The Werebeast had killed her instantly. Lucy ground her teeth together, embittered. The sound of prey dying and the smell of blood overrode the gray Were's shaky obedience, and they dashed to the Wereguard's side. Pack 1. Lucy 0. UI. Get out the friggin' door. A male voice shouted from the direction of the exit. Lucy heard the subtle click of a gas gun being chambered. Moving faster than ever, she dove past the doorframe as the male guard shot a tear gas round into the dorm room. Lucy slammed the door behind her, and Officer Rivers locked it with her key. The beast's enraged snarling quickly turned into coughing and choking. The ragged crew of officers and inmates gathered in the hall ignored the pitiful sounds and looked to the Asian officer with the gas gun. Some of the women were crying. Fortunately, Lucy didn't see Peckler among the group. "If I survive this, they're gonna to drop me in a hole and never let me out." The guard with the riot gun looked incredibly young to Lucy. A perimeter guard, she guessed. They had quicker access to the armory than the regular guards, who typically didn't carry guns. "EY, stick together everyone," the young guard said, taking charge. "Rivers, Diaz, we'll take stairwell 3 to the yard." Lucy spotted Myra and Imogen helping Celia hobble along after everyone. Lucy still felt bad for taking the pregnant girl's glasses. "I got you," Lucy said, grabbing her arm. Celia let out an enormous scream as fluid gushed down her leg. She clutched Lucy's elbow as if she wanted to mash the bone to meal. "You fucking bitch. I'm gonna to cut you. I'm gonna rip out all your ugly red hair. Help me. Ow wow." Celia struggled and lost control of her bladder. "She's in labor," Imogen supplied helpfully, making Lucy want to punch her. Just once. The guard in charge looked back at Lucy for a second but continued to herd the larger group toward the stairway. "I'm sorry. I can't carry you." Lucy dragged Celia toward the stairs, ignoring the woman's curses. "You have to help me here." "I to take her feet, but she's kicking up a storm," Myra said and ran ahead to hold open the door. "Celia, I'm going to throw you down the damn stairs if you don't stop thrashing around." Lucy was breathless as she wrestled the half-crazed woman into the stairwell. The permed strands of Celia's bleach blonde hair whipped Lucy's face. "I don't think she should be in that much pain yet," Imogen said softly. Lucy slipped on the fresh blood at her feet, nearly taking them all down the stairs. Together. Celia went rigid. Her head dropped forward, revealing a thick swath of dark brown roots, and Lucy felt the woman's skin go clammy and cold from one second to the next. Lucy expected Celia to turn into a Werebeast at any moment, but instead the woman crumpled in on herself, eyes rolling back in her head. Imogen, Myra and Lucy barely managed to get the nearly catatonic Celia down the stairs and through the outer doors. While the others had abandoned them, they had thankfully left the security doors to the outside propped open. The larger group hadn't gotten far. They stood in the middle of the grass area of the main yard, unable to move forward or cross back. A number of regular male inmates in orange jumpsuits, at least a dozen, circled them while letting out threatening hoots and hollers. Rivers thrust out her baton to ward them off. Quick as lightning, 3 aggressive attackers dove for the guard with the riot gun. The men looked almost human but for the razor-sharp claws on their hands and elongated feet. His tear gas cartridges spent, the Asian guard swung the gun and connected with the head of one of the feral men. The 2 others rushed the guard, threw him on the ground and bit into his face and body savagely. They fight like dogs, not men. Lucy's fingers went numb, and her knees felt watery. Officer Diaz screamed at the pack to get away. A few of the women prisoners broke from the circle and ran to the far fence. Before Lucy could react, Celia heaved, slipping from her grip, and hit the ground with all fours. She vomited violently, and her body lurched forward. Myra grabbed Celia's back and held her without hesitation. "We've got her," Imogen yelled to Lucy. "Go." Lucy sprinted toward the fight in progress. People and beasts now ran from all directions. Ear-shattering sirens sounded with overlapping double and triple blasts. Lucy ran at the pack, ripping at the downed guard. She couldn't tell if he was still alive. "OFF!" she yelled, throwing herself at his assailants. To her complete shock, they backed away immediately and looked at her with inhuman eyes. Before Lucy had time to adjust, chilling howls from the side of the yard spun her around. 4 Werebeasts of the gargantuan variety came across the grass at a dead run. "Get him!" Lucy called out, taking a chance. Most of the jumpsuited men surrounding her took off to meet the 4 beasts head-on. Far outclassed in size and strength by the beasts, the man-creatures nevertheless fought with the fierceness and intelligence of pack predators. Still working against shock, Lucy snapped her head to check on the small group of women left in the middle of the field. Officer Rivers kneeled on a woman prisoner in mid-transformation, smashing her baton down into the contorted beast face. "The chapel!" Officer Diaz shouted out. She shepherded her remaining prisoners in the direction of the gray granite chapel behind the fenced workout area. Lucy returned her gaze to the downed guard, noticing the blood-splattered grass all around him. She bent down to help him, but as she had feared, the guard was dead. Only now did she see the nameplate dangling from his shredded uniform shirt. She picked up his riot gun. Lucy looked back for Imogen and Myra, but the main yard had filled up, bodies running every which way, and she couldn't spot either woman. She had turned around again when a powerful blow to the back of the head sent her flying forward, knocking Chu's gun to the ground and almost laying her out. "Bitch!" Peckler spat. The surprise attack didn't slow Lucy down. She jerked to the side, barely avoiding the man crashing into her. "No cunt prisoner kicks me and gets away with it." Peckler seemed crazed, his face beat red and spit flying from his mouth. Lucy squared her shoulders, ready to take the man on, when a robust Werebeast in a pink jumpsuit flew at him. The creature dug sharp claws into his thigh and threw open her jaw for a fatal bite. A shot rang out and then another. The female were dropped, the second shot having ripped through her head. Peckler sunk to the ground, groaning in pain, not from a gunshot but from her bites. Lucy caught sight of the shooter in the guard tower just as an ungainly shape fell on him as well. Not waiting any longer, Lucy broke into a desperate run toward Greystone Chapel. The gate separating the chapel from the workout area with its colorful exercise apparatus swung wide open, nearly ripped off its hinges. Lucy saw Rivers and Diaz run between the granite pillars and duck through the chapel doors. The yard had transformed into one giant blood alley between raging Werebeasts, crazed feral men, not men, shooters on the guard towers, and regular prisoners. Taking advantage of the chaos, Lucy heard the airship above before she could see it and knew the riot would be contained soon. If I can survive that long. The first thing Lucy saw when she came to a halt in the church was a giant weathered mural above the altar. The Last Supper. Lucy had heard about the magnificent replica painted by an inmate long ago, but she hadn't seen it before. She scanned the room. Women and men crowded into the pews, either sitting in chairs or on the floor. Rivers and Diaz had stationed themselves at the doors. Whether to keep prisoners in or creatures out, Lucy couldn't guess. An eerie hush filled the room, as if every person, on an instinctual level, had acquiesced to paralyzed silence. Good. Silence means survival. A heart-stopping scream shattered the illusion of safety and pulled Lucy's attention to the back corner. Imogen and Myra kneeled over Celia, who lay with her back flat on the cold ground, her mouth wide open. Celia screamed and screamed. Her belly had grown enormous since the morning. She was covered in blood and grime. Myra tried to hold Celia's shoulders to keep her from smashing the back of her head on the stone floor as seizures jolted through the pregnant girl. Imogen straightened the corner of a white sheet she likely had ripped from the altar to cover the woman's lower body and legs. Clorox white material contrasted Celia's bright blood and the dark chunks of fetid gore. She isn't dilated, Imogen said. I need something sharp. This can't get any worse. The chapel doors flew open and a slew of werebeasts flooded in. Crap. A colossal reddish creature indiscriminately tore through rivers with mighty claws while the rest of the werepack rampaged towards the pews. People ran, screamed or tried to fight, but the werebeasts were faster, stronger and far more motivated. Desperate for a weapon, having lost Chu's gun on the yard, Lucy dove toward River's fallen body and snatched up her baton. OFF! She yelled and faced the red werebeast. The creature towered over her by a foot. It was beyond muscular, making Gabe's werebeast form seem slight. It took a step back, but she thought it was only to get a better vantage. Keen predator calculation flashed through its eyes, seemingly assessing the risks and rewards of killing Lucy. The instant it lunged for her, Lucy pivoted to the side and smashed her baton into the back of its knee. It faltered momentarily, allowing Lucy full access to its back. She grabbed a handful of its thick shoulder fur, pulled herself close and brought her baton down on the back of its head. The werebeast screamed, its rage hitting a peak, and threw Lucy off like a rag doll. She crashed into a wall, dropping her baton, the breath knocked out of her. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a blur of wild dogmen tear through the chapel doors. Ferals. The red werebeast reared on her, slavering and growling in the back of its throat. To me, Lucy yelled, completely panicked. The werebeast moved closer. She could feel its breath on her face. Get it! She screamed and jabbed both fists into the creature's eyes. The ferals turned from the chaos in the chapel and rushed the red were as one, covering it in a cascade of punches and bites. The ferals fought the were like a pack of dogs would fight a bear. The group gripped its legs and arms while one dashed straight at its throat and held on with iron jaws. Lucy pulled herself to her feet and grabbed the baton. She lunged for the red beast, but the sound of shots fired stopped her short. Everyone in the chapel turned to the entrance, which was now lined with officers in riot gear. More shots rang out, and Lucy saw one of her feral protectors go down. No! Lucy threw her body in front of the pack, still engaged in taking down the red were. Don't shoot. They're helping. Her words were useless in the mayhem. A rubber projectile smashed into her side. Pain spread like fire and she stumbled, her bare feet scraping on the stone floor. Abruptly a knee came up into her face, connecting with her jaw. It would have floored her if a hand hadn't viciously grabbed her by the hair and yanked her almost off the ground. Where is Dr. Friel? A guard in full riot gear bellowed into her bruised face. He grabbed both of her shoulders and shook, leaving Lucy dazed and seeing bright flashes. Weakly she lifted her hand and pointed to the corner. He turned his head to look. Instantaneously she shot her other hand up under his protective mask and then drove her palm into his nose. The awkward blow brought pain and he let her go abruptly. Scrambling on her hands and feet, Lucy scurried in the direction of Celia. She didn't get far when vice-like arms clamped around her waist and pulled her up. Ahead she saw Imogen standing still against the granite wall, the bloody white sheet bundled in her arms. Guards encircled Imogen, protecting her. Lucy struggled in the painful grip, kicking her feet high in the air for leverage. Pain shot through her body, enraging her further. To me! She roared, sensing the rush of ferals struggling to come to her aid. The guard let go when the first feral crashed into him, and she bolted toward Imogen. Lucy didn't care what happened in her wake. On the stone ground, a disquietingly serene look on her face, lay Celia in a virtual lake of blood, dead. Her body looked as if it had been shredded. Flaps of flesh dangled from within. Myra knelt beside her, rigid. A guard held out his hand to help the nurse to her feet. Imogen put a conspiratorial finger to her lips, urging Lucy to keep silent. Confused Lucy stumbled forward, but a team of 6 guards headed her off. In rapid response team style, they grabbed her arms, her legs, and her head. Lucy felt all fight leaving her. Going quiet, she surveyed the aftermath in the chapel. Her ferals had been beaten down and cowered by the door. The guard they had attacked on her command lay on the ground. The Werebeasts were strewn around the chapel, all dead, shot or bludgeoned. As the team carried Lucy out of the chapel, her eyes went again to Imogen holding the bundle. The white sheet moved. Black fur dropped into sight. Imogen carefully hid it away. Lucy's body jerked involuntarily. Hysterical laughter took hold of her. She shook and cried manic tears. A baton cracked down on her head. Chapter 29. Oracle grabbed him but got away. Cornered him in the high school. Omega. Withdraw immediately. Oracle. Situation escalating. Going in. Omega. Empyrean was just waking up, the good folk either heading to work or dropping their children off at school. Lucy accelerated down Main Street past the venerable used bookstore when she spotted Hannah's truck in the parking lot of Molly's diner. Let's stop here and get Hannah. Lucy turned into the lot and parked close to the building. She can help us find Kai. I don't want to waste any time. Xochitl jumped out of the car. If Hannah won't help right away, then fuck her. Fine. Lucy locked El Gallo. We'll file a police report. Xochitl snorted. As if La Chota's gonna help find a hound boy. Hey, this isn't LA. Lucy pulled open the door to Molly's diner. People are nice here. Molly's diner hadn't changed since Lucy was a kid. They'd never eaten out much when Lucy was growing up, but as a special treat Mama would let Lucy have a piece of Molly's famous blueberry pie. Molly's was a cozy country restaurant with wood paneling and comfortable booths. Pretty flowered curtains framed the large windows. A small breakfast crowd went about their morning business of guzzling coffee, munching on bacon and waffles, reading the Empyrean Post and gossiping. As Lucy and Xochitl walked through the door, all activity and conversation ceased. The handful of seniors, teenagers late for homeroom, farmhands and soccer moms all stared at them in utter silence. A very uncomfortable moment passed, leaving Lucy wanting to joke. As you were. Xochitl elbowed Lucy. Friendly, you say? The activity resumed, but Lucy still felt eyes on her. When she looked to catch someone glancing at them, they quickly looked away. Hannah sat in the booth by the one open window that looked out to the parking lot. The curtains had been pushed all the way to the side, letting in the cool morning breeze. Hannah, dressed in nothing but a tank top and jeans, was obviously enjoying the cool air. She fussed with her phone while shoveling a massive breakfast burrito down her throat. A nearly empty pot of coffee sat on the wood table next to a brown mug, and beside that, pushed slightly out of the way, rested a pancake easily the size of a manhole cover. The giant pancake was covered in syrup and topped with a mound of whipped cream. Hannah clicked off her phone, picked up her fork and speared a piece of the gooey pancake. Lucy slid into the booth across from Hannah, followed by Xochitl, who only paused to swipe another mug from the bar. Hannah didn't seem surprised to see them and scooted her pancake out of the way before Lucy could stick her fingers in the whipped cream. It's a reflex, Lucy muttered. We don't have time for food. Xochitl snatched up the coffee pot and poured some into her mug. This is sustenance, not food, she answered Hannah's raised eyebrow. Somebody took Kai. Lucy didn't hold back. Help us find him. Are you sure he didn't just run off? Hannah didn't seem impressed. Ferals are like that. No loyalty. She gave Xochitl a wry smile. Lupe saw, Lucy started, but the clatter of a coffee mug being slammed down in front of her stopped her from continuing. You wanna order? The waitress stared at Lucy, completely ignoring Xochitl. Lucy heard giggling from the booth behind her. Sherry? Lucy asked, recognizing the heavyset teenage waitress as Molly's daughter. Blueberry pie would actually be great. So you have time for pie? Hannah quipped. The girl scoffed and folded her arms in front of her chest. Lucy remembered the stubborn gesture, usually accompanied by foot stomping, from when Sherry was little. Lucy and her mama had been Sherry's favorite babysitters many nights when Molly was busy running the diner on her own. The ranch had been a second home to so many of Empyrean's children and adults. Ellie welcomed everyone, and everyone had been their friend. I don't think your mom would be happy to see you being rude to customers, Lucy remarked as gently as she could. Yeah, and I guess your mom isn't too happy you killed her, you murdering slut. The girl spun and fled before Xochitl could grab her arm. Xochitl rose to go after her. Leave it, Lucy said in shock. And this is why I asked you not to go into town, Hannah hissed. These folks loved Ellie, she explained to Xochitl, who looked outraged. Hannah's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it and slammed the phone on the table face down. What's going on? Lucy asked, but before Hannah could respond, an older woman strode up to the table, followed by a gray-haired man in a matching Hawaiian shirt. Lucy Lowell. How dare you? The woman looked familiar, though her blue-tinged old lady Q-tip hairdo was new. Janice. Lucy greeted the woman who had been on the town council with her. Mama. Mayor Welks, Janice's husband Gary corrected. Lucy Lowell, I never thought you'd have the nerve to show your face in town again after what you did, Janice said, looking prepared to spit in Lucy's face. Lucy shifted her body forward. More giggles came from the other booth. Backing up, the mayor waggled her finger at Lucy and Xochitl. The werewolf whisperer doesn't belong here. She turned to her husband. Tell them, Gary. Gary put both hands squarely on the table, flexing fairly impressive old man muscles. His arms, exposed by the short sleeves of his shirt, were exceedingly hairy. He looked right at Lucy but spoke to Hannah. Hannah, do you need this jailbird trash removed from your place? He pushed down on the table, making the coffee mugs jump. Lucy was starting to find humor in this grotesque situation. Is this ancient Pendejo threatening us? Xochitl sounded truly puzzled. Again, a response was impossible as a shrill, but familiar wail cut through Molly's diner. Every head turned to the front door. Screaming at the top of her lungs, little Lupe stood next to the entrance, her hand trapped in the chute of a vintage gumball machine. Imogen, now swathed in an elaborate Renaissance cloak, leaned into Lupe and spoke to the child in short syllables. Just let go. Imogen tried to appease the girl, but Lupe only screamed louder. Honey, I don't have change. The machine wants a quarter. I don't have a quarter. Let go. I'll buy you all the gumballs. Imogen waved to Sherry, who sulked behind the bar. Hi, excuse me. I need change for 100. You don't belong here, Lucy Lowell. A trim woman with a bleach blonde pixie cut leaned into their booth on Hannah's side. Hannah placed her hand on the woman's arm. Why don't you go open up the library, Nina? I got this. Let go, Lupita. Imogen's voice shrilled in the background. Self-defense. It's just not right, Hannah, the librarian argued. Ellie would never have hurt anyone. Right on, Mrs. Schlabach, a young man's voice shouted from behind them. Lucy spotted a blonde teen in an Empyrean high football jersey duck back down in his booth. You weren't there, Nina, Hannah insisted. None of you were there. Now leave it. Gary straightened up. If I'd been there, well, things would have been different. He grumbled uncertainly but backed away. Janice, apparently unable to help herself, turned to Lucy, who sank down in her seat. Terea. S.H. Janice dragged the word out into 3 slow syllables, making each carry as much venom as possible. That's it. Xochitl lurched out of the booth and grabbed Janice by the blue cotton ball hair. The mayor shrieked as her wig came off her head. Xochitl shrieked in surprise, and Gary shrieked as he tried to ram Xochitl into the bar. Lucy shot up out of her seat, but several pairs of hands grabbed her from behind and dragged her over the back of the booth. Son of a motherfucker. Lucy spat as her head hit the edge of a table. 2 young men in football jerseys started raining blows down on her. She curled herself into a ball and dropped under the table. One of her teen assailants grabbed for her legs, looking to drag her into the aisle. Lucy kicked him square in the face. She rolled to the side and weaseled her body up between the table and the booth. She heard a familiar howl of delight. Scrabbling to her feet, Lucy saw Kai fly through the open window and land on Hannah's table. Long fangs protruded from the boy's mouth. He howled again and flung himself at the stunned football players. Letting Kai distract the football bullies, Lucy oriented herself for a second. No other threats advanced. Instead, most of the patrons sat in their chairs quietly and watched the melee with utter fascination. No one stepped in to help or hinder. Lucy clocked Hannah engaged in a cell phone contest with the blonde librarian. Apparently both women had 911 on the line. Hannah screaming loudly about how her daughter was being attacked. Lucy reeled when she heard Hannah shout the word lynching. Lucy heard the crash of dishes and pivoted to see Xochitl whirling around on the top of the bar. Xochitl kicked and flung another plate, avoiding the grabby hands of Gary and the antics of Sherry, who was preposterously swiping at her with a broom. Lucy heard Xochitl laugh and egg them on with filthy Spanish expressions. Out of the corner of her eye, Lucy spotted Imogen chasing after Lupe, who streaked through the diner with Janice's pale blue wig held aloft. Janice sat slumped in a chair by the restroom and pointed. My hair. The child is getting away with my hair. Janice groused weakly. Time to go. Lucy shouted to her companions and turned to Molly's customers. Unless anyone wants to see my Werebeast go full throttle. She pointed at Kai, who had shoved one of the football players into the pie display and was circling the other, delivering calculated kicks and punches to his vulnerable areas. The teenage bully sank to his knees, protecting his face and begging Kai to stop. As suddenly as it had begun, the brawl stopped. The diners looked transfixed. Xochitl jumped off the bar and walked to meet Lucy and Kai at the front door. I'll take care of the cops, Hannah called across the room while clutching Nina by the wrist. Nina's cell clattered to the floor. Just go. Gary hobbled over to Janice, a red boot print on his left cheek. Sherry hid behind the bar, phone in hand. Lucy could hear her start. Mom! Imogen carried Lupe in her arms, the child yanking the individual strands out of Janice's rumpled wig. Lucy started to walk out, Kai holding the door for her, but Xochitl hesitated. By the gumball machine. She knocked it over deliberately, breaking the round glass top into pieces and sending the candies rolling across the hardwood floor. Have at it, kid. She winked at little Lupe. Xochitl reached into her jacket pocket, drew out a wad of cash and threw it on the floor. Hasta luego, bitches. Lucy pulled El Gallo out of the lot and turned toward the highway. What the hell, Kai? Xochitl swatted the back of the boy's head. Lucy glanced over to see Kai cramming himself into a tiny ball on the floor by Xochitl's feet. He pointed to the back window and made low whining sounds. There's a black van following us, Xochitl exclaimed, having glanced out the back herself. Ay carajo. Looks like Lupe's blonde lady is driving. From a distance, Lucy could hear police sirens. She squinted in the rearview mirror to see the black van pull down a side street. Not the local catcher unit then. Or I say, Lucy wondered out loud. Keepin'. Isaac. I think the weather report said something about a shitstorm coming our way. Let's just get to LA. Xochitl checked Kai for injuries. He's fine. She ruffled his hair and sent him to scramble into the back seat. But if any other pendejo tries to snatch him, I'm gonna shoot first and forget to ask questions later. As they continued down Main Street, they were neither stopped nor followed. Lucy started breathing a little easier when she saw the "You are now leaving" Empyrean sign. Xochitl pulled out her phone and started searching something on the screen. She turned the phone toward Lucy. Look. Driving. Lucy reminded her. What is it? Miguel. Read it to me. Lucy adjusted the mirror and looked back toward Kai. How's about you send up the sandwiches Jerry packed? Kai started digging through the cooler as if looking for buried treasure. Los Lobos Luchadores, Xochitl read out loud. The wolf? Lucy tried to piece together the Spanish. The fighting wolves. Xochitl took 2 sandwiches from Kai, handing her phone to Lucy as she undid the wax paper wrappers. Address look familiar? Lucy's eyes went to the prominent banner of Miguel's Werewolf Fight Club site. Shit, that place. Are you okay going back? Lucy asked, exchanging Xochitl's phone for the unwrapped bacon and avocado sandwich. Oh sure. You know, hell sweet home. Xochitl grimaced. As they hit the open road, Lucy realized she'd never gotten her piece of blueberry pie. Chapter 30. The Federal Werebeast Defense Mandate, FWDM, recognizes today's unique challenges as regarding the defense of citizens in a post-Kyon Virus (KV) world. In an effort to improve the quality and length of life for all, the FWDM establishes federal policy to provide best available measures based on current science and, utilizing an holistic approach, allows individual states the ability to strengthen citizen enforcement up to and including termination, with extreme prejudice on a case-by-case basis. Guidelines should be regularly updated to focus on the identification and reduction of the greatest risks. The federal mandate holds state and local law enforcement accountable for accurate processing and execution. Excerpt from the Federal Werebeast Defense Mandate. 20 months ago. The crisp night air felt good on Xochitl's skin as she sat on the steps and leaned against the wood railing of her Uncle Vern's cabin. Stars filled the sky like diamonds, and Xochitl couldn't remember ever seeing so many in all her life, surely not in Los Angeles where the always illuminated city lights overpowered even the brightest of constellations. It had been 3 weeks since the team had brought Miguel to Lake Arrowhead, and she felt like she'd barely spent 3 minutes with him. The first few days Xochitl had hardly slept, keeping a constant vigil by Miguel's side. Vern had run and fore through Miguel's arm to keep him hydrated, and Xochitl had wiped him down with a wet cloth to keep him from getting bedsores. Miguel had tossed and turned and groaned most of the time, but the chemicals or whatever those pinch-pound scientists dosed him with had kept him sedated. Then Miguel had woken up, and all hell had broken loose. He had ripped off his restraints, his fore dragging behind him as he'd clawed his way past Xochitl. When she had tried to calm him, it had taken Bob, Vern and Prez to hold him down before Mick had been able to safely shoot morphine into Miguel's fore. Time Miguel had come to, Xochitl had seen the terror in his eyes. He'd fly into a rage, almost transforming until Vern or Bob would sedate him again. Xochitl didn't know what Miguel saw when he looked at her, but she knew he was in agony, and she didn't know how to help him. Xochitl sighed and grabbed the beer she'd rested on the stoop behind her. She took a long swig of the Belgian ale. The cool beverage tasted slightly bitter, but was nonetheless smooth and satisfying. Ah! Xochitl wiped her mouth with her sleeve. Through the screen door she could see Vern and Bob in the dining room going over the pictures Vern had taken at the pound. Despite losing the computer, Vern had collected a great deal of intel from Dr. Weissman's office. Among the data found were formulas for a serum the pound scientists had been administering to their captives. Neither Vern nor Bob could make heads or tails of the experiments. Bob had decided he was going to take the information to some of his people later in the week when he returned to civilization, as he'd called it. Bob had made a fortune in the private sector of security, a merc, but a good merc. Not at all the outdoorsy type. Bob preferred running his very successful security firm from a lofty office in Beverly Hills and letting his men do the dirty work. What can I say, I'm a Four Seasons kind of guy, Bob had confessed one night. After several scotches, Xochitl agreed. She liked the cabin and didn't mind fishing on occasion, but she was a city girl at heart. The most helpful information they had gleaned from Weissman's files was the chip she and her cohorts had embedded just under the left scapula of each of their subjects. That was the word that had stuck with Xochitl. A subject. That's all Miguel was to these monsters. Xochitl had nearly gone out of her mind the night they'd removed Miguel's chip. Mick hadn't given Miguel enough morphine to keep him sedated, and he had come to just as Bob had been prying the chip out. Miguel, lying on his stomach, arms and legs strapped to the legs of the table, had reared his head up and roared in pain, nearly knocking the dining room table over. In what had seemed like a brief moment of clarity, he'd stared at Xochitl and asked, "Why?" Then passed out again. Lefty had been studying the chip since that night. He'd learned it was the secondary trigger that had tripped the alarm at the pound. Each chip had been encoded with an alphanumeric designation and held detailed biological information down to DNA sequencing specific to the subject. In her notations, Dr. Weissman had called these subjects Homo canis. All the chips had been linked directly to an unknown auxiliary server. This new information had troubled Vern. When Xochitl had asked why the second server mattered, Lefty had explained that the server could be anywhere. Without Ames' missing computer and the information he'd downloaded to it from Weissman's laptop, Lefty had no way of tracking the secondary server's location. Any additional data on Weissman and the purpose for her experiments on Miguel would remain unknown to them. Miguel's chip was engraved with the designation HXY151. Xochitl downed the rest of her beer. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Lefty round the side of the cabin with Prez and Mick following close behind. She turned toward the men as they approached the base of the stairs. "Vamos, chica." Lefty threw a denim jacket up to Xochitl, who caught it just before it landed at her feet. "What's up?" Xochitl eyed them suspiciously. "We are taking you out for some cervezas," Mick drawled. His arm nearly healed, the normally laconic man was in better spirits. "It's Ser, va gringo." Xochitl raised her empty beer bottle. "And I'm good." "That's swill," Prez chimed in. "Plus we need to get the hell out of here." before we all go crazy. Prez and Mick turned and headed for the parked vehicles at the end of Vern's driveway. Come on. Lefty trotted up the steps, took the jacket from her and deftly placed it around her shoulders. Not bad for a one-armed man. Your chariot awaits, my lady. He bowed low and with a grand gesture threw out his hand. Pendejo. Xochitl grinned, shoving Lefty lightly. Hey loverboy, let's go. Prez shouted from El Gallo. Wait, we're taking my car? Xochitl asked. Orala. That ride's badass. Lefty dangled the giant rooster keychain in front of Xochitl before jogging off toward Mick and Prez. Fine. But only I drive El Gallo. Xochitl hurried to catch up to her new drinking buddies. Xochitl, Prez and Mick stood at the counter of a particularly divey bar Prez had somehow found while driving around the Arrowhead area. Lost. The tension was palpable. A lot was riding on this moment. Xochitl eyed her opposition. Her heart thumped in her chest, and her hand tapped nervously on the counter. She pulsated like a stallion waiting to be let out of the gate. 1, 2, 3, go. Lefty pounded his hand on the bar. With lightning speed, Xochitl downed the shot glass of tequila, slammed it on the bar counter, licked the salt on her hand and then picked up the slice of lime, squeezing it between her teeth. Done, she yelled, tossing the juiced lime on the bar and raising her hands in the air victoriously. Damn girl. Prez winced at the tartness of the lime. You can pound 'em back. That's because she's Mexican, Mick chimed in as he finished off his lime and signaled the tattooed bartender for another round. And Polish, Xochitl added. It's in the genes. A Polish Mexican? Never heard of such a thing, Prez joked. You're Molish. Or Plexican, Mick said, sliding 3 tequila shooters toward them. Xochitl shook her head at Mick. So what are you? Besides the white boy in a sling buying the drinks. Gunnar Mikkelsen, descendant of the great Viking people. Mick beat his chest with his good fist. Prez, Lefty and Xochitl burst out laughing. What are you laughing at, Thomas Jefferson? Mick shot back at Prez. No way. Xochitl looked at Prez. What? He was a great president. Prez grabbed his shot. Oh, Prez. Lefty looked as if a light bulb just went on over his head. I get it. Sweet kid. Xochitl slapped Lefty on the back. To President Thomas Jefferson. She raised her shot glass in salute. To Thomas Jefferson. Prez, Mick and Lefty raised their shot glasses in reply. All 4 downed their tequila shots and slammed the empty glasses on the counter. Who? That's good. Prez hollered. Hey. The barkeep, whose elaborately painted arms took the place of shirt sleeves, gave them a disapproving look. I like your ink. Xochitl winked at the drink slinger. Xochitl turned away from the bar counter. Well, Viking Mick, don't forget the beers. She felt the tequila buzz hit her. I need to sit down. She collapsed in a chair at nearest table. Her fingers found sticks 89, crudely carved into the wood. Hi Joel. That's old school. How the hell do you find these places? Xochitl yelled over her shoulder to Prez. It's a gift, Prez replied. Her gaze followed the 3 men as they took their seats. Prez and Mick each, carrying 4 bottles of beer, set them awkwardly on the table. But amazingly, using only his left arm, Lefty adroitly balanced a serving tray with 4 beers and a bowl of pretzels. With ease he placed the tray on the tabletop. You're pretty good at that for a one-armed man. Xochitl took a swig from her bottle. You have no idea. Lefty suavely raised his eyebrow in Xochitl's direction, causing her to spit up some beer. No he didn't, Prez said. Nice kid, Mick added. Lefty sat in his chair, looking very pleased with himself. Xochitl grabbed a handful of pretzels and popped one in her mouth. The taste of stale hard bread coated her tongue. With nothing to spit mushed pretzel out in, she had no choice but to wash the salty glob down with more beer. Yuck. She tossed the remaining snacks in her hand back into the bowl. Relaxing into her chair, she smiled fondly at her companions as they drank and joked with each other. Over the past couple of weeks she'd gotten to know these guys well. They worked together, trained together, ate together. The men had seen her at her worst and had stood by her. They were cocky smartass. But they were also fine men, good soldiers, real brothers to one another. So you all served with Bob? Xochitl asked. Prez did, Mick replied, tossing a stale pretzel in his gob. I was a sharpshooter in Iraq. Did my tours. Rotated out. Bob's security firm recruited me. Been working for him ever since. He was my CO in Desert Storm, Prez said. Wait. That'd make you around 40. Xochitl was shocked. She thought Prez didn't look a day over 30. 42 actually, Prez said with pride. Black don't crack. And brown don't frown, Lefty chimed in, looking a bit glassy-eyed. He raised his bottle to Prez before taking another drink. The group howled with laughter. Hi Joel. I'm drunk. What about you, Lefty? Xochitl slurred and propped her chin on her hand. Were you recruited by Bob too? Sort of. Lefty cast his eyes to his beer. Xochitl, you are looking at the 2008 Junior Golden Gloves runner-up, Prez proudly announced and slapped Lefty on the shoulder. Bob was his coach. Your coach? Xochitl asked. Lefty shrugged but didn't elaborate. See, Prez continued. Pedro here was on his way to the big time. Could have made it too if the fool kid didn't go and enlist, Mick added. Is that true? Xochitl put her hand on Lefty's. You gave up boxing for the Marines. Lefty pulled his hand away and grabbed another beer. Bob saved my life. He used to volunteer. Trained kids to box at the local Y. I was a street kid and he trained me. I didn't win the title. I thought I'd let him down. So I enlisted. I thought I could fight for the Marines and make him proud. I boxed a bit for the Corps before. Lefty's hand seemed to involuntarily go to his non-existent right arm before he pulled it back. Xochitl fought the urge to reach out to Lefty and cradle him like a mother would her child. He's a Marine. Don't embarrass him. Anyway, Lefty continued, a smile once again on his face. ID hit our convoy took my arm. I was stateside with nothing to do and Bob asked if I wanted a job. So here I am. If you don't mind me asking, how come you don't have one of those prosthetic arms? Xochitl grabbed for another beer. On a waiting list, Lefty replied. VA's backed up. Lots of us make do until our names come up. Pinch government. Man, why didn't you say anything? Prez asked. Bob would hook you up. Nah. Lefty took the last remaining pretzel. I do just fine with one hand. He nudged Xochitl with his elbow. If you know what I mean. Hi Joel. You wouldn't know what to do with this. Xochitl waved her hand down. Her figure. Mommy, you could teach me. Lefty made a kissy face at Xochitl. She smacked his arm. Once again Xochitl and her newfound brothers roared with laughter and clinked their beer bottles in salute to one another. Good morning. Time for the bottom of the hour weather forecast. It's gonna be a nice one, folks. 73 degrees will be the daytime high. Xochitl slammed her hand down on the clock radio by her bed, shutting up the obnoxious weatherman. Ugh. She rolled over and squinted at the clock. Display. 8:30 a.m.? Who the hell set the alarm? Next to the clock, she noticed a glass of water with a post-it note sticking to it. Morning. You're going to need this. V. Ugh, Vern. Xochitl groaned and rolled over on her back. She rested her arm over her eyes to block out the sun's rays. Soft material brushed against her cheek. That's weird. A sudden searing pain stabbed her arm, and she shot up in bed. Directly over the scars on her right forearm was an oversized rectangular gauze bandage. Holy crap. What happened to my arm? Xochitl's stomach twisted in a tight knot, making her feel like she'd vomit any second. Madre de Dios. Please make the world stop spinning. Xochitl grabbed the edge of the bed. Gently she pulled the bandage away from her skin, wincing as it ripped the tiny hairs off. Underneath, the words La Guerra were drawn in calligraphy, the style akin to Felix's graffiti art. I carajo. Xochitl swung her legs over the edge of the bed, her head pounding in her skull like a drum. Where the hell are my pants? She tried to focus as she scanned the room for her jeans. They had been neatly folded on top of the chest of drawers. She staggered across the room, tripped over her own feet and slammed into the rustic piece of furniture. Jodame. Get a hold of yourself, Zoc, she mumbled. She snatched her jeans. Wobbling, she tugged them on and zipped them up. Cottonmouth in full effect. Xochitl licked her lips and downed the glass of water in one gulp. Her stomach immediately flip-flopped. Maybe I should have sipped it. Clutching her middle, she walked gingerly to the door and out into the hallway. She leaned against the wall, using it as a crutch, and made her way to the kitchen. A heated debate echoed loudly down the hall. Well, don't you think it's a little premature to pass such a controversial bill? A male voice asked. The ACLU has already filed motions with the Supreme Court on grounds that it's discriminatory. No, it's not. People are getting hurt, killed, a female voice responded. I say it's about damn time. They should all be rounded up and disposed of. That's a little extreme, a different male said, clearly trying to keep his voice under control. What you're calling for are concentration camps. I'm just saying what others are too squeamish to say, the female stated as Xochitl leaned against the door jamb. Prez was standing at the kitchen counter in front of a blender. Next to him, small television tuned to a political talk show featured pundits sitting around a table. Xochitl recognized the blonde woman but couldn't remember her name. She did remember not liking the woman. On that note, the host interrupted, we'll take a commercial break. Shut that off. Mick flipped his newspaper over to read the next page. There was a time when college radical activist Xochitl would have been glued to the television set, watching the experts expound on the political discourse of the day. Saving the downtrodden and disenfranchised was her passion back then. But those days were well past, and she agreed with Mick. Turn that pinch government crap off. Now all she wanted was coffee. Which one of you pendejos is responsible for this? Xochitl raised her arm, showing off her new body art. That would be you, love, Mick said as he snapped his paper straighter, bringing the front page headline into view. Senate passes federal Werebeasts defense mandate. That was quick. Add a little fear as fuel to the fire and Washington goes to work. You're one crazy chick. Prez turned to her, a glass of some kind of green concoction in his hand. What the hell are you talking about? Xochitl sat down at the table across from Mick, trying to read the front of the paper. Last thing I remember, I bet you guys that I could beat you at pool. Girl, you did more than that, Prez said, crossing to her with the glass of green goop. On the front page of Mick's paper, Xochitl noticed a small picture of a woman in police dress blues to the right of the main article. Holy crap. Lucy Lowell. Can I borrow that real quick? Xochitl snatched the paper from Mick. Hey. Mick threw up his hand. Hero cop released under the federal Werebeasts defense mandate. Officer Lucille Lowell of the former ACTF division of the LAPD will be released tomorrow morning under the federal Werebeasts defense mandate. Officer Lowell was incarcerated 3 months ago for killing her mother, Elizabeth Geneva Lowell, who had turned into a Werebeast during the initial outbreak of the Kyon Virus. As no precedent for the murder of an Afflicted was in existence at the time of Elizabeth Lowell's death, it has been determined that Lucy Lowell was accused and convicted of second-degree murder with unwarranted haste. At today's White House briefing, Press Secretary Raul Schwartzwatz stated, now that the decree legalizing the killing of dangerous wers has been passed by Congress and signed into law by the President, the immediate release of the unjustly convicted has been made mandatory. However, unofficial sources suggest the national attention garnered by the Folsom prison Werebeast riot forced the hand of the Oval Office, corroborating reports of Officer Lucy Lowell saving hundreds of lives. Both prison staff and inmates drove the momentum, and Congress had no choice but to pass a law that would grant her freedom. Myra Brown, an inmate at the prison, was quoted as saying, if Lowell didn't hand those beasts their furry behinds and make those other dog boys sit up and beg, they'd have found our dead bodies in that chapel. Hey. Prez snapped his fingers in front of Xochitl's face, drawing her attention away from the article. Huh. Xochitl looked up at Prez. Good article? Mick snatched his paper back. Here, drink this. Prez thrust the green drink in front of her. Xochitl sniffed the glass. Repulsed, she jerked her head back. Ugh, smells like ass. She held the glass at arm's length and set it on the table away from her. It'll help. Prez slid the glass back in front of her. Trust me. Just hold your nose and drink it. Xochitl eyed the glass and whimpered. She pinched her nose and downed the green guck. Ack. She gagged and handed the glass back to Prez. That's disgusting. She scraped her tongue with her teeth, attempting to rid herself of the taste. Coffee. Please, for the love of God, coffee. Prez rolled his eyes but returned with the coffee pot and a mug, setting them in front of her. She eagerly poured the brown nectar into the mug and took a quick sip to test her stomach. She felt fine. Huh. Prez's hangover potion worked. So you were saying Xochitl leaned back in her chair, clutching the warm mug. You went to get us some beers, Prez said. You were very chummy with the bartender. Kept commenting on how you loved his tattoos. Mick smirked at Xochitl over his newspaper. The next thing we know, Prez continued, you come back to the pool table, wanting to make a bet. You beat us at pool, we get tattoos. And if we beat you. So I lost. Xochitl guessed. No. You kicked our asses, Mick grumbled. Yeah, were you raised in a bar or something? Prez asked. Yes, Xochitl said, not elaborating. So we got our tats. Mick put down his paper and pulled up his shirt sleeve. Leaning in, Xochitl saw a small 2-inch X-Man tattoo inked on Mick's right shoulder. Holy shit. Xochitl burst out laughing but stopped abruptly, her head throbbing. Ack. She put her head down on the table. Serves you right. Mick sneered. We're all scarred for life. Kept saying I own your asses now. Lefty got one too? Xochitl asked, knowing she was in the doghouse. Yeah, the brainiac came up with the design. Prez leaned back against the counter, holding his own glass of green goop. Kid's got a tang for you. Xochitl would have protested, but her head hurt too much. So if I won, why? This. She lifted her arm in the air. Said you wanted to take back your identity or some shit. Mick huffed. What does Ori mean anyway? It's pronounced Weta, Xochitl replied. The kids in my neighborhood called me that. It's what you call a light-skinned Mexican. Only they meant white. Girl, you don't belong. Xochitl looked up to see both Prez and Mick staring at her with sympathy. Embarrassed, she shrugged them off. So where's Bob? Xochitl asked, changing the subject. And Lefty? I want to thank him for marking you for me. Bob left early this morning. Said something about needing to get home. Mick folded his paper and took a sip of his coffee. Oh, I'm sorry I missed him. Xochitl yawned. Lefty's outside by the lake with Vern and Miguel. Prez nodded toward the kitchen window. Miguel's up. Xochitl darted to the mudroom. The cabin's backyard sloped toward the lake, and through the screen door Xochitl watched as Miguel, wrapped in a blanket, stood at its edge talking with Vern and Lefty. Even from her vantage she could see Miguel looked better, calmer. More like her baby brother. Miguel! Xochitl shouted and waved, trying to get their attention. The men looked at her, then turned around. Miguel whispered something to Vern before walking further up the lake. Miguel! Xochitl called after him again and trotted down the hill toward Vern and Lefty. Where's he going? He just needs some time alone, Vern replied. Time alone? He's been alone. Xochitl took off after her brother. Xochitl! Vern called out, but she didn't look back. I'm not letting Miguel out of my sight. Not again. Miguel, wait. She grabbed his arm. Leave me alone. Miguel shrugged her off and kept walking. ¿Qué pasa, mijo? Xochitl jogged around her brother and stopped in front of him. Die game. I need to be alone. Miguel cast his eyes to the ground. Alone. Fear gripped Xochitl and she hesitated. Or away from me. Just alone. Miguel glanced at her. You're lying. Xochitl looked into her brother's eyes. I can always tell when you lie. Like when I told you I didn't work for Memo? Miguel shot back. I was working in his chop shop for months and you didn't know shit. He spat. Miguel, You're what? Sorry. Miguel turned and headed for the cabin. Xochitl spun him around to face her. Yes, I'm sorry. But I'm also trying to help you. Help me? How can you help me? I don't need your help. I helped you back at that pound. Xochitl regretted the words immediately. You don't know a fucking thing about it. Miguel growled, then doubled over. He's losing control. She staggered back a step. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Vern send Lefty up to the cabin before running in their direction. Calmate, mijo. Xochitl raised her hands. I'm not your son. Miguel panted. Go. Please me, Miguel. Xochitl reached for her brother, but he waved her off. I don't want you here. Miguel's voice cracked. Terror filled his amber-colored eyes. Please go. Xochitl stood frozen in front of her brother. Miguel shook uncontrollably. He gripped himself as if he'd fall to pieces if he didn't hang on tight enough. Xochitl, go. Vern wrapped his arm around Miguel. Why can he touch him and I can't? Xochitl. Vern yelled and pointed to the cabin. Go. Now. I've got this. It's me. Miguel can't be around me. Tears streaming down her face, Xochitl ran back to the cabin, leaving her brother behind. Without stopping, she passed Mick, Prez and Lefty, their tranq guns at the ready. She slammed her bedroom door and released the scream she'd been holding. Inside, Xochitl dropped to the floor, sobbing until she had exhausted all her tears. It was mid-afternoon when she woke. Her neck was stiff from the hard surface, and her eyes burned. She felt rejected and empty. Miguel doesn't want me. Miguel doesn't need me. But what does Miguel know? What Xochitl knew was that her whole world had been turned upside down by the Kyon Virus. Her little brother was a furry monster, and the only person who could control any of it was being released from prison tomorrow. Lucy Lowell. Are you sure you have to go today? Lefty asked. He had insisted on carrying her duffel bag. Yeah, it's for the best. Xochitl gave him her most reassuring smile. Besides, I've got some business I need to handle. She clutched the page she'd ripped from Mick's morning paper tighter. I'm gonna stick around for a bit. Keep an eye on Miguel for you, Lefty said, as they continued down the long driveway toward Xochitl's Tornado. Wait up, Mick called as he and Prez jogged toward them. Prez gripped the handle of a medium-sized black leather case. Hey girl, he panted, bending over out of breath. You weren't about to leave without saying goodbye, were you? You okay there, Prez? Xochitl hid the paper in her pocket. You know what I said about working on your cardio. I'll get on that. Prez continued to breathe deeply. We couldn't find you back up at the house, Mick said. Thought we'd missed our chance to give you a little going-away present. He nudged Prez and nodded to the case. Here. Prez held out the gift. Just a little something to remember us by. Xochitl examined the present. It had 2 levers on the front, locking it like a briefcase. Thanks. She was confused. I guess a girl can't have too many bags. Open it, Blondie, Mick mocked. Xochitl hesitated. She didn't know why. She'd always liked receiving presents. Maybe because it's been a long time since anyone's given you anything without expecting something in return. Here. Mick grabbed the case and held it on its side. Stop being a pendeja and open the damn case. Xochitl flicked up the latches and slowly opened her gift. No way. Her mouth dropped open at the sight of 3 shiny silver blades gleaming up at her. You guys, this is too much. See, that's a Bowie knife with a serrated edge. Prez pointed at the largest of the 3 weapons with glee. The other 2 are Filipino karambit knives. Xochitl interrupted. Girl knows her weapons. Mick chuckled. You guys. Xochitl choked up. I don't know what to say. No need. Just think of us the next time you're beating the crap out of someone, Mick said as he locked up the case and handed it back to her. I will. Xochitl threw her arms around Prez and Mick. Thank you. She reached out to Lefty, who joined in on the bear hug. Okay. Enough of this sentimental crap. Mick pulled away, breaking up the love fest. Time's a wastin' da. He nudged her. Thanks guys, really. Xochitl smiled as Prez wiped a tear from his face. I'm going to miss you. She squeezed Prez's hand, waved to Mick and turned toward her car. Vern paced next to El Gallo. Her uncle spoke in a hushed, agitated tone on the cell Ames had given him. I gave you what I had, Vern said. Don't give me that crap. We both know. You got what you needed. I have no idea what she knows about her. Who's he talking about? If I find out more, I'll let you know. Vern shut the burner phone. What's up? Xochitl asked. Oh hey. Vern looked surprised. Didn't see you there. Everything okay? Lefty nodded to Vern's phone and dropped Xochitl's bag on the ground. Yeah. Vern stuffed the cell in his pocket. Nothing I can't handle. He grabbed the small case from Xochitl and picked up the duffel bag. Sure you should be lifting heavy things? Xochitl pursed her lips. Legs fine. 10 sticks is nothing. He huffed. You about ready to go? Xochitl nodded and turned to Lefty. Guess this is it. I've got something for you too. Lefty took off his desert camo jacket and handed it to Xochitl. Here. No. She shook her head. I can't take that. Please. I want you to have it. Lefty stepped behind Xochitl and placed the jacket over her shoulders. He slowly walked around her as if he were a CO, inspecting his troops, tugging at the shoulders to adjust the fit. There. Looks better on you anyway. Xochitl pulled the jacket tighter and glanced down at the slanted name patch, affixed above the front pocket Delgado. Overwhelmed, she reached for Lefty and hugged him tight. Thanks for watching over Miguel, she whispered. Vaya con Dios, kid. Then she kissed him on the cheek. Lefty remained quiet, and Xochitl pulled away to look at him. His face had turned bright pink. She shook her head and chuckled. Pendejo, go on, get out of here. She watched as Lefty walked up the driveway toward the cabin. He never looked back, but Xochitl knew how he felt. We're family now, and you never say goodbye to family. Xochitl blinked back her tears. Well, baby girl, this is it. Vern placed her gear on top of El Gallo's trunk. Xochitl tossed Vern the rooster keychain. She knew as she leaned against the car and watched her uncle inspect the contents of the trunk. He was making sure she had all the necessary safety items a girl traveling by herself would need. First aid kit, check. Spare tire, check. Flares, check. Knives, check. Oh, and shotgun, check. Xochitl giggled to herself. What? Vern asked and tossed the keys back to her. Nothing. You're just such a dad sometimes. She opened the driver's side door. Zoc, Vern asked. How well do you know Officer Lucy Lowell? Why? Xochitl asked defensively. Does this have to do with your phone call? Look, I don't know what Ames wants, but he's asking about her. Well, I was just her CI, Xochitl replied. That's it. She felt bad keeping Vern in the dark about Lowell, but she couldn't risk the information getting back to Ames. She needed to find a way to help Miguel, and she knew somehow Lucy was the key. Just watch your six, okay? Vern wrapped Xochitl in his arms and kissed her on her forehead. Take care, baby girl. I will. Xochitl squeezed Vern tight. I love you. She slipped in behind El Gallo's wheel, and Vern shut the door. She rolled down her window. No matter what, I'm not going to stop trying to help Miguel. You know that, right? I know. And so does he. Vern knocked on the roof of the car. Now go on. Xochitl turned the rooster keychain over, and El Gallo revved to life. She waved to Vern one last time and pulled out onto the road. In her rearview mirror, she saw Vern standing in the driveway. Then he was out of sight. Folsom, here I come.